All right, so welcome back. My whole last work session was kind of preoccupied because I noticed it was taking longer than normal to generate the highlight clip. I'm like, that's weird. And so I looked at the logs and I was getting an error from this one API. Like everything else seemed to go through fine. And I know it wasn't like the recording because I was able to download the recording from like the source. And so, and then it said it sent it to Vimeo to be archived, but I didn't see it in Vimeo. But then I saw this weird error for this another API. I'm like, and I noticed that API was kind of acting kind of funny because I wasn't really getting information, but I was like, maybe it's just a hiccup or something. And then I went to log in back into that dashboard for that API, that endpoint. And yeah, apparently my trial expired. And so, yeah, I had to go and put in like a card and everything. So we'll see how much it costs. But I've been using it for a while, almost since the beginning. So I'm like 10 weeks in. And so, because it's based on certain things. So I can't, it's a pay as you go. And so I only do this like once a week, twice a day for that one time a week. So we'll see, because it's based on different things and time and all that other stuff. So, but it's weird that it would like cause an error for everything else that I was doing. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at the code I wrote, because that's odd, because everything should be independent. So it shouldn't have messed with the uploading to Vimeo. That's weird. So I just had to do it manually. And so everything is working now, whatever. But I still didn't get the highlight clip to tweet out. So I will see. Hopefully by actually putting a card on there and actually having a working API, it will fix everything. So we'll see. But that was super weird though. I'm gonna have to go back into the code at some other point. But it was working. It was working fine. You know, everything works fine as long as you know you have your APIs are actually working and your credit your like you have enough credits. Basically everything works fine as long as you have enough credits. So all right, so yeah, that was odd. So I basically spent the whole time like, why is this thing not working? It's weird. And I'm looking through logs and stuff and trying to figure stuff out. Web development. Okay, so speaking of web development, so I wasn't able to actually like spin up a scaffold for my new project, but I've been doing research on it. And so whenever I start like a new side project, I kind of like write out like a documentation on like what it's going to do, what things I may need, anything I may run into, and kind of like think through it. And so, and it's cool because all my projects seem to kind of like go together somehow. So I can always take something I learned from a previous project onto a newer project. And so, like I said earlier, I made my previous side project, the office scheduling app. I made it just a little bit of a PWA to the point where we're able, like, it's kind of available offline. It'll tell you if you're offline. Like the scheduling app kind of needs to be online so you can be able to schedule and see everything, but neither nor there. So it'll tell you if you're offline and you're able to actually install it on your device. So you don't have to open up the browser, go to the website. You just click the icon in your home screen and you're good to go. So that required the service worker. And so service worker is kind of like the brains again. And so for this new side project, the service worker is going to play an even more important role. And so what I needed to be able to do was to communicate between the actual application and the service worker. Because the thing I need the service worker to do, like the browser may not be open. So normally I would do it on the browser, but the browser may not be open. So that's why I need the service worker, which is kind of always running in the background to accomplish the things that the browser would normally do. So I need to be able to communicate like certain tasks from when the browser is open. It lets the service worker know whether or not to do stuff, pretty much. So when the browser is closed, The service worker now knows what his job is to do. So I need to be able to communicate between them. And so I basically just looked up on Google like how to communicate with the service worker or something like that. And so I came across some stuff. And so I went to MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network Web Docs. And let me share my screen real quick. So this is kind of like just the journey I went down. And I think it may work because from what it looks like in the example code, looks like it may work. That's why I was going to set up the project and kind of like validate it, but we'll see. All right, cool. So we're going to do this thing. Basically, long story short, post message. And it's funny because I used post message before for another application, like another side project I did, but it was for some totally like I used it differently in a different context, which is kind of cool that it's the same thing, but can be used in a different context. So let me stop blabbering. All right, so here's post message. Now, the previous time I used it was for an iframe. And so I was taking this iframe from another site, right? But I needed the information that iframe was putting out. I needed to be able to listen to it in the surrounding application that iframe was in so it could do certain things. So I used post message. So the iframe was doing post messages out. And so with that, I was able to listen on the iframe for those messages, just with like a regular like add event listener, I think it was. And I was able to, depending on what the message was, respond to that in the outer application, which is like a totally different domain. So I thought that was pretty cool. And to see this now, I'm like, oh, that's kind of awesome. So I think this will hopefully help out. So I am going to actually copy the link to this first one, to the client.post message, right? And so save the link. All right, so the post message method of the client interface allows a service worker, so I think that's probably why it came up in the search terms, to send a message to a client, whether it be window, another worker, or a shared worker, right? The message is received in the message event on navigator.serviceworker. So what happens is, this is kind of the opposite of what I wanted, but it was a good start for me. I'm like, all right, post message, maybe I could do that. So this is from the service worker to the site, the client, right, to the browser. And so that's pretty cool. So kind of went through here. So as an example, so here is from the service, so sending a message from a service worker to a client. So in your service worker, you have this code, right? And so you're waiting until it's you have an event, it looks like. And then exit early if we don't have access to the client. So you check and see if you have access to the client. If not, just return, get out of there. But if you do have it, you can get the clients by doing this. But then exit early if we don't have access, if we don't get the clients. Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you don't have access, but then if you have access, but you still can't get it for some reason, return. Okay. Again, I haven't done any of this. This is just all the research and the randomness. So again, if anyone knows anything more about this, that's why I'm doing this, kind of like a lightning talk. And so this is where I'm at now. So if you know of a better way, please let me know. All right. And so then we send the message to the client. So here we have access to the client, and here we can actually get the client. So then here we can do the post message and just like, hey, I just got a fetch from you. So you're listening for a fetch event, and then you're sending back the request URL and the message there. Cool. Now back on the actual client, you're getting the message, which is this here from the post message. And then we're console logging the actual data.message, which is this message here, and the URL, data.url, which is this URL here. So it's kind of from the client, it's sending a fetch request, which that's what the service worker does. It kind of like listens, like everything, all the traffic kind of passes through that. And so depending on how you have your service worker set up, any like requests, like you can send, so it's quicker, you can send back a cached, like a cached response that you had before, or you can just let it go through to the internet, and so it can pull something fresh. So it all kind of depends on what you have there. So what this is doing is from the client is sending a fetch request. The service worker is listening for that fetch request. And then it's like, all right, cool. Let me send a message back to the client to let you know that I did get the fetch request. And then this is what the URL was, basically. So that's that, right? Then that led me to the worker post message, right? Just kind of like doing more research. I think I searched more since I knew about post message now. I think I did like service worker post message. And then it took me here. Now, this is of the worker, right? And so this is sends a message to the worker's inner scope. So basically, we have different kind of workers. There's like web workers, service workers, and I think another one like shared or something like that. I think. Again, I'm not too sure about all this, but this is kind of like what I'm thinking. So correct me if I'm wrong. But let me post a link to this one as well. So I'm gonna copy, and so that we can you can always check out everything I mentioned in the archive. All right, so now this kind of got me closer because then I'm able to send the worker, and I'm thinking service worker, the message, right? And so I'm going through here, and it's like, cool, looks like it. So here, the following code snippet of the creation of a worker object. So this is in your client, your browser, you're creating a worker, right? So, and workers are basically like web workers. I guess they're the same thing as workers. I don't know. But what they do is because you have like that main thread in the browser. So if you're doing anything that's kind of like heavy as far as computational, you kind of block that main thread. So what you can do now is with the worker, you can take that computational heavy thing and take that to the side, to like a side worker. So that does its thing while the main thread can still do what it needs to do. And then when that's done, it'll send a message like, hey, I'm done. Here's the information. So that's what I think this is doing. So you're creating a new worker and you're using the worker.js. And I think it shows the file somewhere. And then on the first change, it's something you're listening for. You're posting a message with the first value, second value, and you're console logging message posted to the worker. And then the second change, you're doing basically the same thing. And so let me show you the actual thing here. So this is the example. Like when you click this simple worker example, you get this. And so what this is doing now is like it's taking like the multiplication of two different numbers, putting that to a side worker and calculating that out, and then posting a message back with the calculation. And so let's say 7 times. So you see right here. So on that change on this first one, message posted to worker. And then the worker is saying message received from main script, which is on here on the client. And then it says the worker posting message back to the main script. And then the message received from the worker. So this is the client, the browser that we're typing stuff in. It's the worker is saying, cool, I got the message, thanks. Then it's sending a message back to the client, and the client and the worker is sending a message back, which is this one. And then the client saying, cool, I got the message from the worker. All right. And so when you should see something similar when you do multiply the second number. And then so when I move this, it's going to fire the on change. And then you see, bam, it does the same thing. And so then it comes back with 42. When this was 0, what did it say? Hold on. Yeah, so that's why it was 0, because it took the two values. So yeah, that's why it's 0. So when I put in 7 and it changes, see, it sends a 7 and the 0, multiplies it together on the worker, comes back with a 0. But then when I put in the 6, it sends both the 7 and the 6, and then comes back with 42. So it sends 7 and 6 to the worker. The worker does the multiplication, gets the answer, and sends that back to the client to be displayed here. That is kind of like what I'm looking to do, except what I'm in my new project, except with the web worker, because again, this browser has to be open for that to happen. I'm thinking I could do the same thing with the service worker, sending a message. And so I did some more research, and I was like, all right, cool. Kept digging. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna give you all some more time because we're a little bit over. Then I found this article, How to Communicate with Service Workers. So that's pretty much everything. And it gives more ways. So there's like the message channel, the broadcast API, and what we just went over, like the client API, I think what we did. And so now there's a bunch of different ways. So compared for a two-way communication. So I'm going to read through this article some more. And I'm thinking, and then use that based on what I've seen previously from the Mozilla Developer Networks, take all of that and try to come up with my own solution or something. So this was pretty cool to see. So shouts to Felix Gerchow. And again, I'm going to post a link to this so that anyone can check it out in the video archives. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. Hopefully, let me stop sharing so I can talk to y'all eye to eye. So now, hopefully, with me putting my card so I can get more credits and get that API working again, I'm hoping that I won't have any more issues with things not loaded, because it was working fine. Like I did nothing. I was like, this is so weird. Why is it not working? And yep, sure enough, the trial expired. Like I ran out of trial credits, I guess, or what have you. So it's a cool service, and I want to support because it's like a smaller company. And so yeah, but we'll see how much it costs. So we'll see at the end of the month, because it's like time based depending on how long videos are or what have you. So I don't think it should be too bad because, like I said, the initial credits lasted a long time. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's where we're at now. I'm going to give y'all, again, we're going to get some more, give y'all some time to get back to work. And so this is the final break session that's coming up. So if anyone wants to show anything cool, and what I just did is kind of like an example of what you would normally do in like one of those show and tell things. Just kind of like, like what rabbit hole you went down and what you found out and what you learned and stuff like that. So no pressure or anything. It's super like just chill, I guess, and kind of stuff. So yeah. So if there's not, then we're going to take a look. If there's no show and tell, we're going to go and take a look at an artist's website that we've been playing on the radio show and stuff. So yeah. And then maybe you like them as well. So there we go. All right. So cool. I'm going to head out of here. So let me make this thing full screen and then start screen share. Definitely want to make sure to have audio. I'm really hoping that between the time of me putting in my card to get my account working again, and now that everything went through, because I think it's the same API key. That's another thing. You have to watch out. So I'm really hoping it's the same API key and that I don't have to change anything, and hope everything works. So we'll see. We'll see. The joys of making random side projects. All right. So again, thank y'all. I got that worked out. Cool. And yeah, shouts to Apani B and Nujabez. The track is called Thank You. All right. We're going to be out of here. So 15 minutes after hour. Much progress and productivity to you. All right. Wish you that. All right. Let's go. Where's my mouse? Okay, here we go. Thanks, y'all. See you soon.
But let me start from the heart. I just want to state, I thank you all for showing love to me. I appreciate this unique opportunity. I'm gonna rock so hard you never stop supporting me. I'm gonna show you how music is more meaning to life. I thank you all for showing love to me. I appreciate this unique opportunity. I'm gonna rock so hard you never stop supporting me. I'm gonna show you how music is more meaning to life. But let me start from the heart. I just want to state, I thank you all for showing love to me. I appreciate this unique opportunity. I'm gonna rock so hard you never stop supporting me.